My grandmother offered me her publishing empire. After my mother rejected her invitation, now they want back in, but it's too late. When life deals you an unexpected hand, sometimes the only way forward is to play it with courage. That's what I've been learning these past months since my world turned upside down. I'm Sara, 19 years old, currently living with my grandmother Elena in her countryside estate outside of Portland. It wasn't my plan to be here, but circumstances with my mother Diane, 45, and brother Marcus, 21, left me with little choice. 6 months ago, my father succumbed to pancreatic cancer after battling it for nearly 4 years. We knew it was coming. The doctors had prepared us. But that knowledge didn't soften the blow. There's a strange emptiness that follows you when you lose a parent, a void that nothing else quite fills. Dad was my rock, my confidant, the person who always believed in my dreams when others dismissed them as childish fantasies. While my mother and brothers seemed to process their grief quickly, moving on with surprising speed, I found myself struggling. Between applying to colleges and trying to maintain my grades in my final semester at Westlake Academy, I barely had time to properly mourn. I promised myself I'd properly grieve once I secured admission to Hayworth University, Dad's alma mater, and the school he'd always hoped I'd attend. The complicated relationship between my mother and grandmother stood at the center of our family's dysfunction. For reasons I couldn't understand, Mom harbored a deep-seated resentment toward Elena. Marcus, always eager to align himself with our mother's perspective, mirrored her attitude. During our infrequent visits to Elena's estate, they'd behave with thinly veiled contempt, creating uncomfortable situations for everyone present. Despite their rudeness, Grandma Elena always welcomed them with warmth and hospitality, extending invitations to family gatherings year after year. After Dad's funeral, I was the only one who maintained contact with Grandma. I visited every weekend, helping around her property and keeping her company while she processed the loss of her only son. When my final exams approached, I had to pause my visits, but once they concluded, I was eager to resume our time together. Coincidentally, Marcus returned from Stanford University around the same time. Grandma Elena, perhaps sensing an opportunity for reconciliation, invited all three of us to spend a weekend at her estate. I was thrilled at the prospect, hoping that Dad's passing might have softened my mother's stance toward Elena. When I approached Mom about the invitation, her reaction stunned me. "Now that your father's gone, I have zero reason to pretend I can stand that pretentious witch," she snapped, barely looking up from her laptop where she was reviewing financial documents for her accounting firm. "If you want a relationship with her, that's your business, but don't drag me into it." Marcus, lounging nearby scrolling through his phone, nodded in agreement. "Mom's right. Grandma Elena has always looked down on us. I'm not wasting my weekend pretending otherwise." Their callousness shocked me. This wasn't just anyone. This was Dad's mother, who'd always shown them kindness despite their hostility. I couldn't comprehend how they could be so dismissive, especially knowing how much Dad had valued family connections. That weekend, I drove alone to the estate. When I arrived, Grandma tried to hide her disappointment at seeing just me, but the slight slump of her shoulders told me everything. As we sat in her sunroom overlooking the garden Dad had helped plant years ago, she revealed why she'd been particularly hopeful for a full family gathering. "There's something important I needed to discuss with all of you," she began, her hands wrapped around a teacup. "With your father gone, decisions must be made about Westridge Publishing." Westridge Publishing was our family's literary publishing house, specializing in educational textbooks and academic journals. Started by my great-grandfather nearly 80 years ago, it had been passed down through generations, with my father serving as CEO until his illness had forced him to work remotely. During his final months, I'd assumed someone else was managing daily operations while Dad focused on his health. "Marcus is still in college, and you haven't even started university," Grandma explained. "In an ideal world, Diane would step in temporarily, She has the business acumen from her accounting background. But given her persistent refusal to engage with the family, that option is no longer viable. My heart raced as I realized where this conversation was heading. I've been running things with your great-uncle Philip's help, but he's 67 and planning to retire soon. He only stayed this long because of your father's illness. She set down her cup and looked directly at me. Sara, I know you're young, but you've always shown an interest in publishing. Your father mentioned you were considering publishing studies at Hayworth. I nodded, remembering the late-night conversations with Dad about potentially following in his footsteps. Would you consider taking over Westridge Publishing after you complete your education? I'd groom you for the position, and Philip would stay on until you're ready. We could arrange internships during your breaks, gradually introducing you to all aspects of the business. The offer overwhelmed me. I'd always imagined eventually joining the family business, but not until my late 20s or early 30s, after gaining experience elsewhere. Yet here was an opportunity to preserve my father's legacy, to keep Westridge within our family where it belonged. Yes, I answered without hesitation. I want to do this, for Dad, for you, for our family's legacy. Grandma Elena's smile illuminated her face, erasing years of worry lines. She immediately called Great-Uncle Philip, who sounded equally relieved. We spent the remainder of the weekend touring the publishing house facilities, meeting key employees, and discussing how my education could complement my eventual role. In my excitement, I made a critical error. I called my mother, not to gloat, but to share what I considered momentous news, and perhaps to gently suggest that her refusal to visit had cost her an opportunity. Mom, you won't believe what Grandma Elena wanted to discuss. She's asking me to take over Westridge Publishing after college. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds before erupting into accusations. You manipulated this situation, she hissed. You knew exactly why she invited us, and deliberately kept it from me so you could seize the opportunity for yourself. Her interpretation stunned me. That's absurd. I had no idea. Don't lie to me, Sara. This was calculated. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By stealing your father's company from right under me? I tried explaining that I'd been just as surprised as she was, that if she had simply accepted the invitation, things might have gone differently. But she refused to listen, her voice rising with each exchange until I had to hold the phone away from my ear. The following day, something unprecedented occurred. My mother and brother appeared at Grandma Elena's doorstep, both teary-eyed and apologetic. At least that's how they presented themselves initially. If I'd known this visit was about Westridge Publishing, I would have been here in a heartbeat, my mother began, her voice honey-sweet yet transparent in its insincerity. Grandma Elena, who had survived business negotiations with publishing giants and weathered decades of industry changes, saw through the facade immediately. So it's not my company you've rejected all these years, Diane, it's me. Now that there's financial incentive, suddenly I'm worth your time. She stood tall in the entryway, her silver hair gleaming in the morning light. I tolerated your disrespect for my son's sake. Now that he's gone, I see no reason to continue that tolerance. Sara will inherit Westridge Publishing because she values family beyond what it can give her materially. With remarkable composure, she closed the door on their protests, turned to me, and simply said, "Some legacies are more than business assets." That confrontation marked the beginning of a bitter estrangement. My mother and brother blamed me for not intervening on their behalf, insisting I had orchestrated everything to secure my financial future. The accusations escalated into daily arguments, making it impossible for me to return home. Instead, I decided to remain with Grandma Elena permanently. When I finally mustered the courage to ask why my mother harbored such animosity toward my grandmother, Elena revealed a story I'd never heard. Before your parents married, Diane expressed her intention to quit her job at the accounting firm and become a homemaker. I objected, not because I devalue homemakers, but because your father already employed a full-time housekeeper. More importantly, I worried she was primarily interested in his financial status and the comfortable lifestyle it would provide. Grandma continued, I insisted she maintain her career as proof she loved your father for himself, not his inheritance. She complied, but never forgave me for questioning her motives. Perhaps I was wrong to doubt her, but I was protecting my son. This revelation left me conflicted. I could understand my mother feeling insulted by the implication, yet I also recognized my grandmother's protective instinct. The truth, as always, likely resided somewhere in the middle of their perspectives. Weeks passed without communication between my mother and me. She removed all traces of me from her social media accounts, effectively erasing me from her digital life, as though Marcus were her only child. The pain was substantial, but I remained committed to my chosen path. Yesterday, I received the news I'd been working toward: acceptance to Hayworth University's publishing and digital media program. When I saw the email, my scream of joy echoed through Elena's estate. In that moment of triumph, I felt my father's presence, his pride washing over me as I fulfilled the promise I'd made to honor his memory. The road ahead won't be easy. Balancing university studies with learning the publishing business will demand everything I have to give. Yet I approach this challenge with determination, knowing that preserving my father's legacy means carrying forward not just a business, but the values he embodied: integrity, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to family. Sometimes the family we choose proves more supportive than the family we're born into. While I hope for eventual reconciliation with my mother and brother, I've found peace in the knowledge that I'm honoring my father's memory in the way that matters most, by becoming the person he always believed I could be. As Grandma Elena told me the night I received my acceptance letter, legacy isn't just what we inherit. It's what we choose to do with that inheritance. Today, I choose to move forward, carrying my father's legacy in both business and character, building something he would have been proud to see. If you enjoyed this story about family legacy and difficult choices, please subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt content that explores the complexities of family relationships and personal growth. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that resonate and inspire.